Hey, welcome back to the Two Car Garage. I'm Lucas, and well, this is Kurt's bug, and we've got some more work that needs to be done on it. And really, what we're doing here is we're going to be installing some kick panel speakers in this car. And I've already shot this video once, and well, it turned out to be really long. So what we're going to do here today is I'm just going to give you, well, kind of the Cliff Notes version of all the things that we did. Kind of explain it, show some of the footage, and then there will be more of a, we'll call it a step-by-step video. It's about an hour long, and I'll just link that in the description and try to throw a card up here somewhere if I can. And if you're interested in seeing all of the different stuff that we did, you can check out that video. But for today, I figured I'd just kind of run you down with just the basics of what it took for us to install these panels. So let's show you what's going on here. So this is the kick panel that's already has a speaker installed. This is for the passenger side here. And what we're using here is a Kenwood 6.5-inch speaker. It's this guy right here. I will throw a link in the description to this if you're curious as far as what these are all about. The kick panel itself is a fiberglass panel that I got from one of the major VW suppliers. Now I'm not going to share the source for these panels because I don't want to be bad mouthing any supplier or really any product. But these panels really just didn't fit well. There was a lot of work involved just to get things straightened out and then adjusting to actually fit the car. And just know that it's a fiberglass panel from one of the major suppliers, and I'll let you go from there. If there's enough complaints in the comment section below that you really want to know what they are, then well, I'll answer those questions individually. But here's the rundown of what we had to do. First things first, new out of the package, both the driver and the passenger side, this flange right here was warped. You can see here, if I hold a straight edge up to it, just how bent it actually was. And it was pretty drastic. And so what we did, because it's fiberglass, so you do have a little bit of adjustment, I just went ahead and clamped it to my bench with some straight edges and heated everything up with a heat gun, got it good and warm, almost to the point where it was too hot to touch, and let it sit for a half hour. I did that about 3 or 4 times until we finally got everything as straight as I could, and then I did one final heating with everything clamped together between some straight pieces of metal, and then I let it sit overnight. The next day it came out and things were looking pretty good. Once we got that done, I needed to figure out where the panel was going to sit in the car, so we went ahead and just marked the speaker location, drilled the hole, just used a 5-inch hole saw for this particular speaker, and then got the speaker installed. That part was pretty straightforward. It's really just a matter of figuring out where you want it, mark the location, drill a couple of holes. Once I got the speaker mounted into the actual panel itself, I went ahead and laid it in the car, figured out where everything was going to be sitting. We wanted to make sure that the magnet on the speaker is not going to contact any metal portion of the car. And then I marked that, removed the speaker, and then we went to the actual mounting of the panel itself. And this is where things got, well, a little involved. First things first, the mounting system that we're using. I went ahead and decided I was going to use these riv nuts. And the nice thing about riv nuts is it's a machine thread. Should it ever get damaged or stripped out, it's simple enough to drill it out and remove it and then just insert a new one. But it's better, in my opinion, than using sheet metal screws, because every time you run a sheet metal screw in and out, you have the problem of stretching out the metal or distorting the metal. So we went with riv nuts. I can take the panel off and on as many times as I want and not have to really be concerned with the actual thread. So for the 3, we'll call them the rear mounts on the A-pillar, we've got just a 4mm riv nut that's inserted into the A-pillar. And then we've got a couple of 4mm screws, and that's what's holding this edge on there. For the front side where it's mounted up next to the firewall, this screw actually goes into the wheel well. And I really don't want a screw protruding into the wheel well. I don't think it's going to interfere with the tire. I don't think the tire is going to make it that far. But I really don't want to take a chance, nor do I want to have a screw going into the wheel well that's a wet area and have water potentially working its way back inside. So what I decided to do for that is something I haven't actually completed yet because I want to take the front fenders off. But I'm just going to take a screw. I'm going to run it in from outside, so I've got a stud sticking on the inside of the car, and I'm just going to simply weld that to the inner fender well. And then that way we can seam seal it, and once everything's painted up, you're not even really going to see it, and we don't have to worry about any water issues around that hole. Then on the inside, it'll just simply be held on with a nut, and then we're good to go. So when I go to install this, all I got to do is slide this panel over the stud, put in my 3 front screws, put in the nut in the rear, and it's good to go. So that's the basic rundown of the actual mounting for the kick panel. Now for the fun part. Once we got everything kind of located and figured out where everything was going to be sitting, here's probably a bigger issue with this kick panel. Beyond just the fact that this leading edge was bent, it doesn't actually contact the A-pillar on the flat portion of the A-pillar. I think what happened is when these were removed from the mold, they cleaned up this edge and it shortened it up too much. And this edge actually leans back at a bit of an angle. You can see I've got a line drawn on here. You can see up here, this is the top screw hole, and then as we get further down, it actually tapers back. Now this line is straight up and down in relation to the screws. And what happens is this edge down here is no longer sitting on the flat. It's actually where the A-pillar starts to taper back. And so in order for me to deal with that, I just simply came in and I fiberglassed in some feet. So we just built this area up. It took about a 1/4 inch of material on the front, or this middle one, and it took maybe a 1/2 inch of material on this lower one. That allowed me to then actually contour this to fit the body. Now I did it in stages. I ended up doing the middle one first. That way I could get the top bolted down, get the middle then fit correctly to the A-pillar, and then I was able to put that screw in there and hold these 2 points down. And then I fiberglassed the lower one and fit that at the end. By doing it in two separate steps like that, it allowed me to make sure this one fit right without this one interfering. And then once this fit, then I could fit this one by itself, and made for a pretty easy job. A little lengthy. The particular fiberglass resin I'm using is just the Bondo fiberglass resin I get at the local auto parts store, and it takes about 2 hours for it to fully set so you can come in and start sanding. So, had to lay this up, wait 2 hours, fit it to the body, and then I had to lay up this one, wait 2 hours, and then fit it to the body. So you couple that with the fact that I had to straighten this edge and I let the panel sit overnight. This ended up being essentially a 2-day project for what, again, should have just been a quick bolt in. But with the way I was able to fit these, I just rough shaped them with a die grinder and a sanding disc, and then with this actually on the car, I just ran some sandpaper behind these panels to actually get this contour to match exactly to that of the car. So what we ended up with is something that really, when I install this and put my screw in place, it's actually pinching tight. There's no air gaps, there's no flexibility, and it's a really good, strong, solid mount. Once we got everything positioned, the last thing I ended up doing, you can actually see a little bit here around these 2 lower holes. Because the screws are actually going in at an angle now, I went ahead and relieved this surface so the screw head can sit flush on the panel itself, yet still come out at the proper angle where it meets the body. Now, the last thing I'm going to have to deal with at some point, and I haven't decided exactly how I want to handle it yet, so I'm just going to shelve it for right now. But when the panel's installed and I have it up as high as I can get it to, get the speaker up and away so it's, nobody's going to kick it or run into anything. There's a pretty good sized gap between the bottom of the panel and what would be the top of the heater channel. And, once I put carpet in place, I don't want that carpet to just be hanging there loose. So I'm going to have to do something to give the carpet something to mount to. Ultimately, I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to fiberglass on an extension to the bottom of the panel, fit that to the heater channel. So once everything's together, there's no problems there. But again, I have a couple other ideas that I got to really kind of think on. So we're just going to shelve that for now. For the moment, at least I've got things installed. I can go ahead and continue on with my wiring and get all that stuff situated so I can pull all that back out and then move on to the next step. But that's kind of the rundown, at least the quick rundown of what it took for me to get these panels installed in this bug. Now, I will go ahead and throw a link in the description to things like the speakers that we're using, the Bondo fiberglass resin kit that we use to build things up, and again, ultimately we'll probably end up using to build the extension in the bottom of these panels. But that stuff will be in there for you. And that's one more step closer on this thing to being able to blast this car apart so we can get some paint on it. But that's another day. So anyway, for now, I'm going to cut it off here, and I'll let you get back to whatever you're doing, and we'll go from there. So thanks again for hanging out, and especially if you made it all the way to the end here. And well, really, until the next one, I'll see you around.